Welcome to What's New in the Lou with Alexis Zotos, presented by Caldy's Coffee. This is a brand new podcast helping you stay in the know in St. Louis. Think of this as your weekly can't miss podcast on everything fun going on around town. Each week, we are going to dive into new restaurants opening, the can't miss events, and of course, the people that are doing incredible things here in St. Louis. So whether you're a lifelong St. Louisan or new to the Lou, think of this as your way of staying connected to your community. And something that I hear every day is what's happening this weekend? What's going on in St. Louis? So at the end of each episode, we're going to give you a calendar of those can't miss events. I am so excited for this to be episode 1. We are joined by an incredible guest today, Chef Rick Lewis. You know him, you love him. He is the chef and owner of Grace Meat and 3. He's had a very busy summer. He just opened his new restaurant and became a dad of 2. What has life been like for you in these last couple of weeks?
Pretty casual, very laid back, lots of rest.
So much sleep happening, I bet.
No, it's great. I mean, yeah, it's all just been flying by the seat of the pants, you know? I mean, so we were shooting for dates to be open with the restaurant. Those didn't exactly happen. We were trying to adopt a baby for the last year. That happened all at the same time. So, you know, it's wonderful. Just beautiful chaos.
You know, and you've been just really welcomed with open arms at your new restaurant. You opened a second location. What was that opening day like?
It was overwhelming. I mean, you know, we hoped we would be, but it's so funny because like the day before we opened, I was already having like the whole, nobody's going to show up at my party. Like, you know, and just like huge, everybody in the community coming out, supporting, family, friends, new family and friends, you know, is just amazing. So
as someone who's been in the hospitality industry for as long as you have, it sounds like those butterflies, they don't go away. You know, you put out a good product. You guys have had such success with your location in the Grove, but those nerves, they're still there.
Yeah, I think that's a healthy sign probably, you know. And it's also just, you know, it's also probably a little bit of like unhealthiness too. Like, oh, the doubt's just creeping in. But, you know, it was amazing. It was great. It went pretty smooth, all things considered. I mean, you know, the restaurant currently seats about 48. We'll eventually have another, you know, 24 to 36 on the outside. So
you're adding a patio area.
Yep. Like kind of like sidewalk seating, patio seating kind of thing. And yeah, just line out the door, have all the seats packed. And at that point, it's just like, all right, let's really start making some friends so that, you know, we're buying time, keeping people entertained, answering questions, things like that.
What is that feeling of getting, and I don't know if you even had that moment amidst the busyness, to sit and watch somebody eat your food? What's that feeling like?
I love that. I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, it's a big portion of the point, right? They get the food, especially in an environment like that where it's a slightly chaotic kind of feeling. And they sit down, they start eating, their eyes light up. You can tell they're feeling very satisfied, you know, and then they're loving the fact that the team's coming around, they're checking on them, you know, I'm there checking on them, making sure they're having a good time. And it's amazing what people will tell you, you know, like, I mean, very, you know, stuff that's very flattering, like, oh, I've heard so much about you, you're a great dude, your family, blah, blah, blah. You know, or, you know, they've really wanted to come into the Grove restaurant, but it's a little too far away and they're so happy that we're here. And so, you know, that's it, right? That's what keeps us doing what we're doing is serving the community. You know, kind of faith is a big part of what we do, kind of walking out the image of Christ to people, you know, and just caring and serving for people well. And that's what we love to do.
Something that, you know, strikes me is you're no stranger to sort of those lines out the door. I remember when you first had Southern and those lines were just crazy. And you would hand out samples to make sure that people stayed engaged, that they didn't leave the line and go somewhere else. Especially now, there's more competition than ever for restaurants. when did that start? That sort of like that realization that you've got to be out there with your customers.
Yeah, I think, like that really drove home to me when I was, even before I was running my own restaurant. So like when I was the sous chef at Monarch over in Maplewood, and they were really, it was very important to them that like Josh and I would go out, explain dishes and connect with customers. And so that kind of laid the foundation for it. And then, taking over Quincy Street, getting to know the local community there. And then just, over time, realizing that there's such a need and such a desire for connection beyond just the food, right? And so, and then learning that also from like the Pappy's crew, right? Like Mike would be out there, John would be out there shaking hands, talking to people, handing out little pigs to little kids and stuff. And I think that's just a big part of what we do is getting to know each and every person that comes through the doors.
I think it's more important than ever before, maybe, as people are almost like disengaged with the people aspect. We're all in our phones, we're on social media, we're seeing these restaurants that we want to go to, we want to try. But when you actually get there and then you have that opportunity to talk to the people behind it, like that gives that realness, that brings it full circle. Like these are real people behind these restaurants, real people putting their heart and soul in every ounce of a waking moment.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that makes it, that much more desirable for people to want to come out and support the businesses and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a huge part of what we do. It's a huge part of why the place is named Grace, why we have certain values that we have, why we try to run the company the way that we do, even down to each team member and things like that. So, yeah, I think you got to do it.
So you kind of touched on some of that backstory. You were at Monarch, you were at Quincy, Southern, before you opened Grace. What was your first experience in the kitchen? When did you realize that this was a job that you wanted to be a part of?
Yeah, I think that started well before like I really thought that it did, like I took, even in high school, like I would throw big parties and things like keg parties and invite a bunch of underage
That's
kids.
The basis of a lifelong career in hospitality.
These were serious, though. I mean, these were entrepreneurial endeavors.
I love
it. And we'd have barbecue.
Okay, well, I got to ask though. You said high school. Where'd you go to high school?
Lutheran South.
Okay.
Yep. And nobody parties over there.
No, there's 0 parties happening. All right, so you got into that sort of like hosting aspect early on.
And then I started working in like rehab work and construction with my dad, and learned really quickly that I love the skills, but that really wasn't what I wanted to do. So I started working in restaurants, and I worked at a bar and grill, Delaney's over in South County. I worked at LaRusso's Cucina over in off Watson there. And just kind of, kept learning, kept having a desire to learn how to cook, like more interesting, better, different food. Had a friend that told me about a place called American Place downtown, started working with Josh Galliano there. And that really opened my eyes to things that, I really had no idea food could be what food can be.
Did you ever get formal training? Did you learn just in the kitchen?
Just working in, the streets of St. Louis, baby. And, and that was really eye-opening, and then I went down that whole kind of upscale vibe really hard, and then realized that when we wanted to do our own business, we just wanted a casual restaurant that people from all walks of life could come to on a regular basis, and that really opened up. I would say Quincy Street was kind of a cross between the fast casual and the fine dining, right? It was just a really good neighborhood bar and grill type of restaurant. And then when we opened Southern, that was like the first foray into fast casual, and I had no idea what I was doing.
When you were at Quincy, you had the honor of being named to James Beard Rising Star Chef. What was that like?
It was a huge surprise, I'll tell you that. That was not on the radar.
I believe it was the first time someone had been named that in St. Louis.
Yeah, the Rising Star. As far as I know, the Rising Star, yeah. And, man, it was like, I didn't even know. Like when it happened, I didn't even know until my phone started blowing up on Twitter. And I was like, what is going on?
What did I do?
And And that just like, it was like someone flipped on a light switch down there. All of a sudden we had just people from all over coming down. And I remember we were calling family members up, to prep and wash dishes. And really that was the first time I had met Mike from Pappy's several times, but that was the first time, I think we really connected. He like sticks his head in the kitchen. He's like, "What do you need?" I was like, "If you could take this stack of pork bellies down to Pappy's and smoke them, that would be a huge help." And yeah, it was just it was an amazing honor. It was like it opened my eyes to kind of what the world was becoming with social media, with influence, and with people's eyes kind of on you. So it was really kind of like a game on.
Would you say it changed your career in any way?
Oh yeah, I mean, it definitely like it put us on the map, put my career on the map. And, I even look back on it, I was like, oh, well, I probably would have done a few things different to keep that like snowball going. But at the same time, I think everything we've done has been intentional and purposeful and good. So
St. Louis in recent years really has sort of gotten on the map when it comes to being recognized as a great
yes.
food city. How have you seen that change in your years of experience working at all these fantastic restaurants? What do you see a shift when it comes to sort of St. Louis being recognized for that?
Yeah, I think what I've seen that is really, really cool is like back in the day, like, when I was working at like Monarch or even before that, like American Place, you only had this small handful of like real pioneers, I feel like, that were doing that, like in town. And I mean, there was guys that were doing stuff for a very long time that was really good, but then you started to see this kind of second regime of pioneers, which, it would be like Gerard and Kevin Nashin and Josh Galliano. And then what I've seen is you start seeing all these guys that worked a lot of years underneath those guys, just, grinding and learning and like hands-on learning. I'm not talking about like the YouTube, Google learning of today, like hands-on, like you had no way of knowing this stuff without doing these things, and now you're seeing all these guys come up and they're opening their own restaurants or starting their own businesses. And they're, different and more casual but still, using those techniques, those fundamental skills that they learned. And then now you're seeing another regime of people come up, the even younger guys doing even, cooler, or as cool, wild stuff. And, it's just really neat to see all these in different areas. It was always so concentrated to just these small pockets of South City. And now you're seeing it like grow and grow. And I think that's amazing because I think, St. Louis is so diverse, and that just continues to grow and drive that home and shed a good light on the city.
Caldy's Coffee has been proudly roasting in St. Louis since 1994. Guided by a commitment to quality, service, and community, Caldy's strives to make every cup a moment of discovery. And get this, thanks to the support of their St. Louis community and fans across the country, they were named USA Today's #1 coffee chain in 2024. Visit Caldy'sCoffee.com to find your nearest cafe, shop coffee for home, or even book a free tour and cupping at their roastery. Follow the goat to your next great coffee experience. Enjoy the rest of the episode. You kind of touched on this, that you've already been hearing from people at the new restaurant, thank you for opening up here in South County. And do you think it's important that we sort of spread that love of those great establishments? I mean, there's great establishments all around all the counties, but we do generally see, kind of those top-notch places more focused in sort of mid-county, city. What is your hope to see sort of that a continued expansion around town?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to see like, St. Louis City get neglected, but I do think, there is a ton of establishments down there. I think for us as our business, like, what we want to do is we want to see like more grace in each town. That's kind of like part of our thing. It's like, how do we continue to get this out to more people? And
So continued growth is part of the plan?
That's what we would like to do. I mean, we'll see just how, I'm not going to get wild with it, but I want to like build something. So whatever, my capacity is for that and whatever time it takes, that's what we'll do. I also want to grow it for my team, for my family, for St. Louis. So that's what we're doing.
So let's talk about the food a little bit.
Yeah.
As we look at your new restaurant, it expands that ability to serve more people that great food. For those who maybe haven't been in yet, walk us through the menu. What's the must order?
Yeah, well, I mean, what's put us on the map is fried chicken and catfish, right? Those are the two big bangers. They were the two big bangers down at the Grove location. Even though we put out some fantastic barbecue, some really cool chefy kind of specials and stuff, those have always been the things that really carried us through everything. So now, we're just kind of expanding upon that in a smaller footprint. So, we've got these fantastic hush puppies, green chili, roasted jalapeno hush puppies that are delicious. We're doing like some more creative spins on sandwiches at this spot.
So there'll be some different things between the
Yeah, a
locations?
little handful.
Okay,
We'll have like
So you
some
gotta hit up
familiar
both?
things. Yeah. Yeah. And then we'll have, we've got like our beer battered cod, which we've ran during Lent a lot. And it's wonderful. It's like this light, crispy rice flour beer batter that's just fantastic. We marinate all the cod. We do like a Filet-O-Grace sandwich with that.
What in your mind makes a great piece of fried chicken?
Yeah, I think for me is like, I don't want overly like bready, overly battered chicken. Just kind of, I want it to be seasoned through and flavorful with a light, crispy batter that, and not too like, people are like, oh, eat it and it's greasy. And I think it's because it has all that coating on it and stuff like that. And so that's what we do. We marinate all of our chicken. We have like a dry rub seasoning and a wet marinade we put on it. And then it comes right out of that, dredge it in the flour, shake it off and fry it. Same with like our fish. It comes right out of the marinade, goes on the catfish, we do like a cornmeal. It is a little lighter. It's not straight cornmeal. So we cut it with a little bit of flour and a little bit of starch and a bunch of red chili. And then we just dredge it in that, fry it up, and it's nice and crunchy and good.
Do you ever walk through sort of that question in your head of like, how do I continue to be sort of that chefy guy while also serving up something, as you don't want to use the word basic, but basic as fried chicken.
That is. I mean, and even from the business perspective, right? That's two conflicting things, like, being the chefy chef and the business thing and what is our model and stuff like that. And I've just really in the last, few years gotten more at peace with that, right? Like let's, back in the day, like, whatever, probably over 10, 12 years ago, if you would have asked me. So Grace's been open 9 years. Before that, we had Southern for 2 years. Yeah, so if you would ask me 12 plus years ago, if I thought I was going to be the fried chicken guy around town, I would have been like, no, I don't think, I would have like laughed at it or something. Maybe not. I don't know. But it happened and that's great. And so, and it's fun and it's really good. And so, yeah, a little part of me, the chef part, it's like a trade-off. Let's still be creative and on mission and on point, but let's also, run a tight business.
Do you think that becoming a parent changed any of that for you?
I think it just gave me more drive, honestly. I mean, but there is also the conflicting pull of like, okay, I want to spend time with my family. And so I think that is like, okay, then let's just be intentional in everything we do. Let's be, zeroed in. When I'm with family, I'm with family. And when I'm at business, let's do that. And then, a capacity thing too is like, I'm always growing. I'm always being stretched. And I think I like that. If it was just like the same thing, I would lose my mind.
Yeah.
So
you guys still have the food truck?
Yep.
Yeah.
Food trucks running. I think we got like 16 or 20 events this month.
Oh, okay. So just a little here and there.
Yeah. It's just
what makes you want to keep that portion of the business, and what does that bring from a business perspective to have sort of that advertisement go right out into the community, to different parts of the community, reaching new business?
I think that, I mean, just what you said is the big thing, is like it gives us, opens doors up to new markets. We focus on like buyouts and special events. So like we do vending, but we really focus on like, it's like an arm of the catering company more or less, and then a marketing tool. And it's hard. I mean, those food trucks are no joke. I wasn't planning on the food truck when we got it. Like we had talked about it, but then we kind of shifted our focus. But then the food truck found us, and it was a really nice truck. So I was like, well, we can't pass up this opportunity. Actually, all of our businesses have found us. So
really,
like the Grove location, the former Sweetie Pie's space, like we were looking at another storefront, happened to drive by and noticed that Sweetie Pie's wasn't open. There was no sign on the door or anything. And then we called the landlord, and he said that they were moving. And so we were like, well, and they showed it to us, and we're like, man, this feels like home.
yeah.
So that's how that happened. And then we talked about the food truck thing, but then we launched that pickup window for late night stuff, which then happened to be fantastic for COVID. And then the food truck found us. That was just me talking to a buddy who he had heard about it. I don't know if I'm allowed to say who I bought it from,
That's
so
okay.
I'm not going to.
We won't make you divulge your secrets.
And then Crestwood, the guy that was sealing my driveway, I was telling him we were looking for another spot, and he said he seals Randy's parking lot down there at King Edwards, and he's wanting to retire. Give him a call. So I gave him a call. And
this is why you got to network and talk to people. Yeah. I tell this to people all the time. You have no idea what kind of connections are to be made 100%. By simply talking to people.
It's huge. And I think to that, like networking, talking to people, it's like, it's one of the most important things, but also being willing to just kind of walk through doors when they open up. I think a lot of people tend to shut doors for themselves or be like, oh, I think, going like just having the willingness to walk through and see what happens is a very important thing.
Have there been moments that you've done just that, where you have been scared to open that door, but you've said, you know what? Let's do it. Let's push through.
What just happened with our new baby Isaiah is a huge one, right? Like we're getting ready to open this restaurant. We get the call, I guess, was it last Wednesday or whatever? Hey, we've got a drop-in case. If you want to adopt this baby, you're going to have to be at Texas tonight and be willing to stay here for 2 to 3 weeks. And I was just like, my wife's looking at me like with these huge eyes, and she's like, and I'm like, we'll figure it out. We got to do this. We can't. I would feel like that I put my business in front of my family. And so I've got like these 3 buckets, right? And it's like faith, family, and business. And those things got to happen in that order for all things to be good. And sometimes, there's seasons where certain things pull ahead of others in certain moments, but from overall, that's the way it's got to go. And so I would have really felt like I took an opportunity to grow my family and put it behind my business. And so we did. We went down there. We got the call at 1:30 on Wednesday. We were on a plane by 8:30 and Wednesday, and we were at the hospital Thursday afternoon. And I think the fact that we were willing to have some faith in that it will all work out then opened up another door where, where normally there's this ICPC period where, child services there is communicating with child services here, and that takes 2 to 3 weeks, almost always. And all of a sudden we get the call at 5:10 on Thursday evening, and they go, this never happens, but somehow you got approval to go back home. And so then we were like, I was like, are you serious? Are you sure? Because if you're sure, we're gonna get, we're out of here. And sure enough, it was all good. So then we were back home, not sleeping, and then we opened up the restaurant that Friday.
That is wild. That is absolutely wild. And it just really does demonstrate that like things can work out, they really do. You have really talked about adoption, your journey with adoption, and building your family, helping raise that advocacy for something that a lot of people don't know about. Yeah. And I think people really love you for that like honesty, that realness, and that like family focus.
Yeah, it just, it is who we are as far as our family, what we believe in, things like that. And it's huge for us. I mean, like, and adoption can kind of get like, you know, some, there's kind of two, I'm trying to think of the right words, like there can be some bad connotations or negative stuff through adoption, but it's a very bittersweet and beautiful place to be. And like, I can tell you, we wanted to have children so badly and we could not. And we considered the IVF stuff. And then we were just like, you know what? There's so many children that do need good homes. That's what we're, and we had talked before that, like if we would have had biological kids, that adoption would be a potential thing. And so it has been a tremendous blessing to us. People will say, and they're being sweet, is like, what a blessing for that child. And it is, but it's so much greater of a blessing to us to be in a position to be able to raise that child, give it a good home, and then for us to be able to grow our family. And it's just amazing.
When you think about your kids and the legacy you're building with your business, what is your hope for your business, for St. Louis as a whole, to make it all a better place for those kids and every other kid?
Yeah, I mean, I think our goal is to build a God honoring business and family that builds a legacy for my family, but also creates some good, brings some good, and grows economy in St. Louis. And that's kind of what our goal is. My children can do, if they're a great artist or whatever, a great musician, they can do that. They can build the business. They could, hopefully they don't have to do what I'm doing and they can just be a CEO of a company one day and sell out to a big company or something like that. But the goal is the people, right? Is to grow something that is a legacy for my family, but a legacy for the community. That's the goal.
Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my honor, my pleasure.
There is always so much going on around St. Louis, events that you want to be at that maybe you don't notice until Monday when you've seen all your friends posting about it. So this is where we are going to show you some of those events that you want to be at. Here is your weekly calendar. For the week of July 7th, the Muni show is Disney's Frozen. St. Louis Shakespeare Festival debuts a brand new show called Romeo and Juliet, a family-friendly show at the St. Louis Zoo. Whitaker Music Festival continues with free concerts on Wednesdays. This Friday is Let Them Eat Art in Maplewood. And Saturday, don't miss the Tower Grove Farmers Market. Have an event you want included on the weekly calendar? Reach out to us on social media. Find us at What's New in the Lou podcast on Instagram and Facebook. New episodes drop each week.